Hello, Studio 108 Seekers and Sages. I am happy from my whole heart down to my toes, up to the tips of my curls to have Zach Friedhof here. He's one of the most special people that I've been blessed to know and to bump into and to share creative time with and to journey with. I just can't even tell you. We once were in a workshop together and I sat next to Zach, and when the leader went around and paired us, she said, "Tracy, partner with Zach." And I was like, and I said, "I have an energy crush on him. He's just such a great guy to be with." So welcome, Zach.
Thanks
So glad you're here. We're going to dabble into Zach's world a little bit. He is one of the most creative and giving people in the Akron area. And every time I interact with him, I come away with, first of all, great ideas and small ways to help, but also inspiration to stay on the path and to continue to look for ways to serve my community and to serve my world and to be diligent about the details of that. I don't want to say like no excuses, because that puts like some sort of an authoritative thing, and that's not the energy you give me, Zach, but it's more like you say this, it's so easy. Like, it's just so easy. So I've learned a ton about music, about recycling, about politics, about city history, about the needs of the people, and really simple, easy ways that we can help, and the world needs it. So the world needs you. So they call Zach the troubadour of peace in Akron. It's a really apt name for him. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and he grew up in Brecksville, so he's
just up the road.
Just up the road. And we're not actually neighbors, because when he lived here, I didn't live here, but you know, I feel like we're kind of across the time-space continuum.
Sure.
Neighbors.
Yeah.
What is time? What is space?
Right.
We're always neighbors. Right. We're all neighbors. Okay, so let's go through some of the things that are outstanding about you. Let's start with music. Tell me about what's going on in your musical world, and yeah, let's talk about it.
Sure. So I've been playing music. This is, I believe, 22 years professionally, and I released a record with my band, the Brightlights, at the end of April called Magical, which I'm very proud of, and spent the first part of this year recording another record that will come out probably the beginning of October. And I'm very proud of that one. I played every instrument on it and recorded it myself and mixed, sort of co-mixed it. And so it's a very special record. That will be my 24th. So that's
wow,
kind of where I'm at musically at the moment.
That's a lot of content.
Yeah.
That's a lot of content. You've heard Zach's music if you practice with me, because I play it in class. And if you've been following me long enough, then you've practiced with Zach and I both at Yoga Bliss and at Log 3 with Elevate Akron. So yeah, you bring a lot of goodness to that.
So, I try to. I mean, it's just, music is just an expression of me. It's like the birds sing. You know, it's just kind of the sunshine. It's just what happens.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And Zach and I were talking before the camera went on, so I want to swing back to this, because you were sharing with me how you get interested in things and you follow your interests, and you never think this is going to be turned into a job, or I'm going to make money doing this. So our little dab into the pieces and parts of you, like the music wasn't really, I'm going to record music and sell these records and be a recording artist. But what has happened to you? When you're, you know, when you sing from your heart and people, you know, really connect.
Yeah, people, I'm very grateful people have connected over the years. And, you know, as I evolve, my music evolves, and, you know, I feel like it's able to spread deeper messages or bigger messages, and those have been able to connect with people in different ways, and that's been incredibly rewarding to experience and to watch and witness and participate in.
And how's it been lately? Like, how's the scene been?
Lately, it's very strange. It's hard to Yeah, the whole music industry is in a dramatic change, dramatic state of flux the last maybe 5 years or so. Um, you know, sort of the end of physical things like CDs and vinyl is a very small kind of market and expensive to make, and so it's mostly everything is done via streaming services
Right.
online, and that's kind of what happens. Is it's just a very different way of thinking about music and releasing music and interacting with people, because it's all sort of this ethereal, like how you're interacting. So it's you don't get as much of the, you know, I'm watching the song resonate with you, or I'm seeing how it experiences. It's just kind of, you just kind of click send on a keyboard and then
you sit back and kind of wait.
Yeah, kind of go about your day. It's a very strange feeling. But it's just, you know, negotiating that, and like there's always change, and anything involving technology is going to change dramatically.
And then you had your live shows that have changed dramatically as well.
Yeah, this has been so the 22 years of performing. This last year would have been my 5,000th performance. It probably happened. I'm right around there somewhere, but usually I do 200 to 230 shows a year, somewhere in there. So it's a lot of performing and all kinds of events, every type of space and place, and I travel all over the country doing it, and you know, I love a lot about it. So this shutdown that went 230 shows down to like 10. You know, and only about 4 of those were in person, like outside on a patio or something. You know, and so there's been it's been a great opportunity to take a pause. I think I've needed a pause for a while, and I wouldn't take it otherwise, you know. But it's been a really good opportunity for me to get back in touch with the roots of why I started music and the joy that I got when I first started playing guitar and singing and writing songs. And you know, at that point, like you had mentioned, like it wasn't, it was just an expression, a creativity, and just, you know, a new adventure of like, how does this work, and how does this do it? How do I get what's going on in here to come out? And, you know, writing songs just to write songs and just to express and to kind of try to process and make sense of the world in some way, or in my little world, or, you know, my head or whatever. And then as you do it more and more, you start to other factors come into play, and you start thinking about like audiences and how would this work with this, and how would that work, and you know, I have to. This is, you know, an audience wants to hear this kind of a thing, or you know, you need to have songs that are this sort of speed so that it paces well with things, and you start putting, you know, a bit of constraints on that creativity and idea, and sometimes it's focus, and sometimes that's really good and helpful, and it's just after a while you don't realize they're even there. And so it's a nice opportunity to have all of it stripped away, and so I could see those things again, and just sort of get back in touch with just the joy of performing. In the first handful of virtual concerts that I did, it was really freeing because there is no audience. Like, I don't know who's watching. I can't tell. You can't interact. There's nothing when the song is over. There's just quiet.
There's no one looking bored. There's no one nodding their head and affirming you. It's just like you just honestly offer.
So there was, it was an honest offer, and it was just giving of what I needed to feel and I needed at that moment, and hoping that maybe it would resonate with others. But you know, it was very much about my own expression and my own fulfillment in that moment, and that was just so needed and so beautiful. I didn't have to, you know, worry about how people were taking it, or if people were leaving or logging off, or any of those sorts of things, or if they were having loud conversations or getting very drunk or whatever else. Like, it was just the music, and it was whatever I felt like doing. And I'm so grateful, because that really helped me reconnect to something that, you know, I don't want to say lost touch with, but had changed, and I wasn't aware.
And it's funny how things do morph when you take your passion and then you offer it professionally. There is, I want to say a tainting, but there is a shaping and a shifting of your creative flow like you're interacting with people and that would naturally happen, and you're interacting with the society rules and responsibilities and stuff, and so then that happens. But similarly, like teaching yoga and having so many people in the class for so many years, and then with the shutdown, and once again, it's like I record it and I offer it, I don't know who sees it, or I'm on a Zoom call and there are like 4 people, totally different than a class of 60 people. And it's been a really great opportunity for me to get more intimate and interactive with my students and to really value that connection. So that might be like a little bit of gift hidden in the chaos. I don't know, like what can we learn from, and what can we kind of carry forward when there's so much and it's so complicated and it really hasn't cleaned itself up at all. Yeah, it really hasn't.
No.
There's a lot of uncertainty when you look.
There is, but it's,
If you dare to come out of the present moment and look to the future, there's a lot of uncertainty.
there's always a lot of uncertainty. We just,
Yeah.
the gift is we get to see it and experience it. We can't look away from it or pretend that it's not there, or
Right.
gloss over it with all of our pretty ideas of what the
Distractions.
future is, or our continuities that we think will be there. We get to actually look behind the veil for a minute.
Yeah.
At the horror and chaos that it is, but
It's
always
been.
is.
Always has been, always will
Yeah.
be. Yeah, good reminders. I love it. So I know that you've got, like, your music is rock, it's a little folksy, it's all right from the heart. Like, do you have a genre that you kind of give it? Because I want to talk about the Thursday morning.
Sure. Yeah,
So-
it's not, it's kind of a singer-songwriter genre, but it
Yeah.
pulls on, there's some rock elements, there's some folk elements, there's some soul elements. And there's definitely, the more that my own yoga path has developed and evolved, there's more of meditative moments and elements, and bringing those intentions and awareness to the other types of things, and it's all kind of brewed together.
Yeah, in that very special Zach way. Okay, so then Thursday morning, you offer kirtan.
Yeah.
Live Thursday morning. What time was it? 6 a.m.? You can tell him that up.
I think it was
Guilty.
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get a break from that?
Yeah, I've taken a little bit of a break from it,
Okay.
but I'm planning on going back to it.
Yeah.
Kirtan is such a powerful practice, and it's impacted my life so deeply. And when I started doing the Thursday mornings, it was mainly an excuse for me to actually
Be
do the
responsible.
chanting, and because I knew that if I set my own alarm and said I'm just going to get up and chant, that I would probably sleep and not do it. And so having that pressure of an audience, or that pressure of scheduling it and saying, okay, this is happening,
Mhm.
just helped me to get through it and to do a whole, it was a year and a half or something straight.
Yeah. And I know people that really like resonated with that, and were there.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful offering.
It was so lovely because it wasn't just the yoga community or folks that have experienced kirtan. It was I was always surprised at how many different sorts of folks it was able to kind of touch and reach, and then people of various practices or backgrounds or no backgrounds or spiritualities or whatever were able to kind of connect with just the meditative aspect of, there's sound that's being repeated, and it's kind of allowing us to lay in that ocean and just kind of experience the waves.
And like shamatha, this easy abiding, to just lay your worries down, to not pick up the phone yet, to not worry about the schedule, and just to rest in that. And like, it's such a precious gift. I feel like this is what I mean when I say that being around you inspires me to remember that it's easy. It's easy to think of small little things to do, that you make that offering and you just lay it out there for people, and you're holding space for a moment of non-chaos. right?
Mhm.
And if I think, oh dear, look, the world is still a mess and everybody's talking about this or that fear, and there's like all this that might be coming at us this winter, probably is, like, it's like, what can I do? Like, how can I support people as a musician, as a yoga teacher, as whatever it is that you're doing? Because that's the less important part. Like, how can we support people in just finding those moments so that we can endure the transformation, because that's what it is. It's an evolution, it's a transformation. Things are changing, things are shifting, and it feels hard and it feels weird and it feels scary, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, how can we like have breadcrumbs leading us along the way where it's like, okay, and I can look and say, there's Zach and here's you, and we're kind of all making our way through it together. And that is a really beautiful example of how something so simple and easy as a Facebook kirtan at 6 o'clock on Thursday morning, so no pressure. No pressure, but if life brings it back to you, like that's the kind of example. And maybe just a little pressure for the rest of us to pick up the ball, like give Zach a break, like a relay race, like he started it so long, and now like we can pick up the baton and carry it forward. And if you want, you can carry it forward with my first Friday of every month, 5 a.m. Aquarian sadhana. So that's serious business too. But I did that once a month, and I've been doing that over a year too, as just for the community. And it's free, but you can access it off the website on Zoom, and you can keep your camera off and just sit with your tea and snuggle with your pup and enjoy, the chanting of the prayers and the mantras. And we have a little bit of movement, but you don't have to do the movement. But yeah, like that kind of a thing is troubadour piece material, dude. Earning the title. Okay, so there's more. So what else is there? Okay, a lot of it's on hold, I know. So we're just gonna go through topics because I know these are all really passions, like they're really important parts of your mission here. Big love.
Sure. So
Look how he smiles. It's like, yeah, big love. I want to talk about that. Yeah.
So I was part of a group that started an organization called Big Love Network, and we've been doing all sorts of things for maybe eight or 9 years, something like that at this point. Kind of started out as a big festival, big transformational festival, sort of for and by the people of Akron, to help us to dream and imagine like what a sustainable city looks like, what a city where a compassionate city looks like how our neighborhood works in sustainable, compassionate ways, and just kind of have an afternoon or a whole day that we can just kind of dream up those things and see if anything sticks, if anything comes out of it, but at least giving us a chance to have those dreams. And so that sort of evolved into actually doing projects in various neighborhoods in Akron. And it's the whole point of it, like we bring, it's driven by artists and creatives and permaculturists and folks in the various healing communities.
Foodies, I remember food.
Food's gotta be there, it's important. It's essential. But it's sort of driven from those perspectives, and it's very much about helping people in the neighborhood to define what their neighborhood is, what they need in their neighborhood, what they want to see, how they can transform their own neighborhood. And so we just sort of help to facilitate those things and those conversations. And
like I remember bringing hot dogs or buns or something, and you guys had like, hot dogs for people, and they could come and you could take their ideas and just talk to people, like getting people out on the streets to say, what would you like? What would improve your neighborhood? How can, we or anyone, how can we just have a conversation that lets people feel hopeful and engaged and
that's
and
the
heard.
basis of a lot of it, is helping people feel heard, feel like they have an opportunity to have a direct impact in their backyard. It's really easy to think about the problems of the city and to say, like, I can't deal with it? Like, how can I change gun violence, or how can I deal with evictions or health crises, or all these other things that plague all of our cities? And it's easy to just get lost in that and say, I'm one person, I can't do anything about it.
And it's easy to sit up around a dinner table, eating a beautiful, abundant meal, sipping your wine, and talking about this. It's no harder to go out into the neighborhood, but it does take a certain amount of courage and organization.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of those things for
and
sure. And it's just
initiative, like just
being willing and open,
yeah.
and inviting people to also be willing and open. And conversations are important. They're a first step, but they're an important step to help people get a little vulnerable, to help people get connected. So many of us don't know our neighbors. So even just that aspect can be really transformative to a neighborhood. Just the fact of getting neighbors to know each other a bit more can turn that person across the street that you don't see, that you're maybe afraid of, or maybe it's just since you don't know them, you don't know what their habits are, or you see somebody stand outside their door, you don't know anything about it, and that whole thing just becomes unknown. And our human world, usually unknown equals scary, dangerous, all those things. So the more that we can at least connect with people in some way and say, oh, that's Bill, or that's whoever, have these opportunities to meet people, and then to listen to them and say, what can we do in this block? Like, how can we make this block a bit better? Like, what are our challenges? What's already here? There's maybe one of the neighbors is a computer whiz and could help teach somebody else how to
100%.
deal with those things, or maybe somebody else is a gardener and they can help grow something or teach somebody else how to grow it. How do we just keep those connections alive, and then actually start to, if there's things that need to be built or changed, how can we do that? How can we bring food so that we can all eat and just share in that beautiful communion? And so that's kind of where a lot of the stuff is based in. Sometimes there are really palpable things that come out of it, like playgrounds, or working with gardens and food forests. We're in the process of putting in 2 food forests in Akron, and it just kind of all depends on what the neighborhood's looking for. Some of them have stayed just at the conversation level because that's where the neighborhood is at the moment. It's a wonderful practice, just and letting go of a lot of expectations of things. And oftentimes these processes, there's like a very defined outcome. Like, okay, we're going to have this conversation so that we can build this thing in the neighborhood, or so that we can reduce traffic, or we can reduce speed, or make something safe. And nothing wrong with that, but you get a very specific engagement and process if you are already focused on the result. Whereas if you're just focused on sitting down and talking, figuring out what someone else is going through, what their experiences are, it might lead you to something very different.
Well, and I think that speaking of someone who likes to be a helper, I do like to be a helper. I have good intention, but usually often my good intentions are a little bit bossy because they're my good intentions.
Sure.
And my good intention might not meet your need.
Sure.
Like I might have a different priority, or it could be that just the fact that I'm bringing my intention and laying it on top of somebody else is a little bit of a put off, and they're just like, so that's one thing that I know I struggle with as someone with, like, I'm an Aries, I have a lot of fire. So sometimes I have to back it off and cool it down and remember to listen and to go in with no agenda, and just look for the connection, feel for the connection, see what's legitimately there. I remember in this conversation we had, and we were, I think Liz was there, and remember who else was at the table? Christy. Do you remember where we were? We were at that coffee house, Angel Falls Coffee House in Highland Square, and we were talking about Elevate and other projects in the city, and y'all had the most beautiful ideas that felt like a million miles away, you know, but it just really inspired me and brought me so much to respect the work that y'all do in the city, because first of all, you've got your ideals, but second of all, because you are taking real life action steps. And I think that's where so many of us kind of get stuck, is that we can kind of see where we'd like to steer things. And once again, these are evolutionary, perhaps even revolutionary times. These are transformative times. Change is going to happen. Change is happening. Okay, so when things change, they're going from the way they were to the way they're going to be. And who's going to decide the way they're going to be, if not the people who know how to make small little steps on a very local level to direct the new ways to their advantage, right? So we need a lot of people like out there talking to people, empowering them, giving them hope, helping them feel heard. Otherwise, it's just going to be more of the same. So thank you for that. Big love you're bringing to the planet. Big love.
Trying to, and I think there's something really special about this, is that it's easy for an individual or a couple of folks. A lot of times, the things I've experienced that are community-based thing, there's a handful of people that are very interested and engaged, and there's a whole lot of people that aren't. And so it's usually this handful of people always kind of showing up, trying to get the ball rolling or whatever. And the thing to keep in mind is that I think we underestimate the power of a whole lot of small changes and a whole lot of small actions.
Mm-hmm. And I know I get busy. I say to you all the time, you're like, thanks for doing that, Tracy. I'm like, I do nothing. Like I do like the tiniest amount, because there's always too much on my plate. I never happen to be in the right place at the right time for all of it. But it's just do something.
It's do something. And all of the somethings add up. They really do. And I mean, that's the beautiful thing. There's 7 billion of us. There's not one of us that's meant to be carrying everybody else along. Like there's 7 billion of us, so that we can all take our little piece and move that forward. There's kind of this image of building a staircase, and you're just building this step. Like your role is not to build the staircase, your role is to build the step, so that then the next person can come along and build the next step. And we can do so much that way, and we often just get overwhelmed thinking about the staircase, thinking about how do I get to the top? How is that going to ever happen? It's just impossible. And so then we don't build this step, and without this step, the next person can't build their step. And it's sort of a surefire way of making sure that we don't get there. And it's really easy to fall into, and I find myself there all the time. But we just have to find whatever we can do, and there's always more that we can do. There is no such thing as like enough, I guess, as far as that, because there's always more that we can do, and we have to honor what we can do right now.
And try not to get distracted. Try not to get distracted by how hard it is to build a step, or how someone told you shouldn't build a step, or how if you build a step, someone might trip on it. Like those distractions, I feel like they're going to be the end of us. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You do what you can
and stay on that positive path. Big love. That's the
do what you can, the best that you can do it with the information and energy that you have, and you just keep learning. And maybe the next step that you build is a little bit better, or a little bit sturdier, or a little bit whatever, and then maybe the next one is even better than that, or you just keep learning as you're growing, and you can't wait to be perfect or to do the perfect action. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that we can learn before we jump into things, so that we can actually be helpful as opposed to harmful. But that said, waiting until we have all of the knowledge, or the perfect time, or the perfect ability, or some amount of money, it's just do what you can do as imperfectly as we are, and just keep your heart open, and
Yeah.
be willing to hear, feedback and criticisms, and be willing to grow and learn and just be of service. And you've got two hands and a whole bunch of skills and a lot of heart, and how does that show up today?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a tiny way, maybe it's something over Zoom, maybe it's a Facebook thing, maybe it's hosting something in a neighborhood, maybe it's feeding people, clothing people, sheltering people, maybe it's running for office. I mean, there's an infinite level of what we can all do and how we can
And
all
I
show
also
up.
think too, like, start where you are, like literally where you are. So look around your dinner table and help those people. Look around, the houses to the left, to the right, across the street, like help those people. Wave to them when you see them, even if their dog kept you up barking all night, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
start really where you are, because that's how 7 billion makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. What's happening with zero waste? Anything these days? Because I know that had a lot of good energy behind it.
We've
And
been working a lot on zero waste efforts. All of it's paused with the pandemic and with COVID. It makes it a challenge. Many of the cities have really changed their recycling procedures during this whole thing, because again, pandemic makes it a challenge to go in and sort things out.
staffing and like all of the,
There's staffing, there's health
protections.
issues, there's all sorts of things around it. So at this point in time, sadly, it's somewhat dormant, but we're still working on it. It's still a big focus of a lot of things that we do, and we're always encouraging people to find ways that we can all reduce our footprint.
All right, let's think of 3. Okay, so I'll start, just in case you don't know any. You can like think about it while I start. First of all, did you know that when you take your recycling bag in, if there's anything in that recycling bag that's not recyclable or contaminates the bag, they don't recycle anything in that bag.
Yep.
So it does pay to be really careful, rinse everything off, peel the labels off the cans. Like, that is really important if you actually want your recyclables to be recycled. That's one.
Yeah,
So,
it's very true.
yeah, sadly true, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point in time, like, pick a couple of things that your city will recycle, whether that's cans or milk jugs or any of those sorts of things. And then just be really focused on those. There's so much of the wishful recycling where maybe they'll do this or maybe they'll take it, and it just ends up meaning that all of it goes to the landfill.
Right, if you're not sure if it's gonna be recycled or not, don't put it in there because you're contaminating the whole bag. I hate to say that, but that seems to be the truth.
It's very disheartening and sad, but at this point, recycling something is better than not recycling anything.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, as far as recycling goes, that's where we're at the moment. Trying to be conscious of the, stopping it before it even gets to recycle. How can we reduce what we're buying?
Yeah.
How can we reduce plastic? How can we reduce things? And that's a huge challenge. It's just everything is so convenient to just go and buy bottles or whatever. And I mean, I do it way too much. We all
Zach,
do.
they didn't do recycled grocery bags during COVID. At Heinz, you had to use their plastic paper things.
Yes, and they
was-
love putting like one item in it too.
Yes, they do, one item in a plastic bag. But here's the killer about that. It wasn't so much that during COVID you couldn't use your recycling bags. That's disappointing, yeah. But what was the killer about it is that everyone got out of the habit. So now that you can, please do, like, go back to that habit. Yeah.
Yeah, and finding out ways that we can do reduce the need to recycle, I guess,
Right.
Kind of starting there. That's definitely something that we can all do. It's a little more challenging than just putting the can, your can of beans in a recycling bin.
Right.
Sort of the next step beyond that is figuring out what we can do to reduce some of these things. And and then of course the third thing is trying to realize where our money goes and try to support organizations that and businesses that are sustainably minded and that maybe aren't trying to destroy the planet in some way or another, because there's a lot of things that we can do as individuals. The majority of the problems come from corporations and big industries. So if all of us recycled properly and did all of that great stuff, that would be amazing, but it would not be the final. It wouldn't be enough. So we have to keep in mind that that's a really hard challenge, because it's hard to change those things, but we can change them in ways with what we buy, kind of being a little bit more informed about those things. If there are opportunities to, petition local government leaders, definitely stand up for those things, stand up for what we can. And, the zero waste stuff is also, that's easier than ever to compost at home. It's easier than ever to kind of do what you can in your own space, at least.
I'm thinking about I've had this conversation with my son who's finishing his PhD in physics, and where you work, he definitely, it's a priority for him to work with a company who has values similar to his.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come through these times that are changing, the companies that we support with our work efforts and with our consumer dollars, they're going to be the ones that survive and sustain. And the companies that we discontinue our engagement with are going to struggle. So all of that mindfulness has to happen.
Yeah.
We're way more powerful than we think.
We are. And also, speaking of businesses and work and stuff, people can make a pretty big impact on their own, wherever your office is, whatever company that you work for. The smaller businesses might be a little bit more open. Perhaps there's not as much red tape or bureaucracy to go through, but even if they're not, I've seen a lot of programs happen because one or two people, it was a passion project for one or two people. They took the responsibility on putting out cans and labels and taking it home and recycling, whatever, but they were passionate enough about it that it grew into an actual program that eventually the company maybe cared about or took under their wing or said, okay, we should focus on this. Or they were able to get enough of the other employees to say, this is important to us. And it sort of started to change some of the culture. That's not always going to be the case, but I think that there's a lot of those opportunities, as opposed to just figuring well, they're not recycling now, or they're not doing XYZ now, so they'll probably never do it or whatever. There's a lot of opportunities to make change.
And honestly, if there's someone who doesn't, step up, and rather than judging or shaming or ignoring, just say, hey, I'll take it home for you. Let me take it home. Let that be your service, because that can be one way to kind of take your single footprint and double the size of it. Awesome. All right, tell me about your art. Because you're an excellent photographer.
I like to take pictures. There's so much beauty all around us that it's just, I just put a camera to.
Yeah.
Don't really feel like I do a whole lot.
We were talking about the altars of life, in a soul journey life, the different places and spaces where, you just have that soul home and attachment, and whether you feel joy or you feel reverence or devotion, it's our lives have these different places and spaces that are altars to us. And when you look at Zach's artwork, when you look at his photography, you can see the altars in his life. Nature is an altar for him. It's just a really sacred moment that you capture and we get to appreciate. So Society 6, if you'd like to take a look to see what I'm talking about. But what do you like to photograph?
Just anything in nature. I spend a lot of time out west, so mountains. I'm definitely a mountain person. That's just, I don't know, whatever my history is. So I love mountains. I feel very connected.
Maybe a mountain goat, Zach. I don't know.
I feel like there's bears in there.
Oh, so maybe bears.
Very connected.
Oh, and you said foxes once too. Did you tell me? Red foxes? Are you a fox totem?
Coyote.
Coyote.
Coyotes, yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
So I love, any time that there's a big landscape, but even, I get really excited about just locally, we have amazing nature. Northeast Ohio is so blessed to have the green spaces in the national park that we have. and the park system that we have. And there's, it's a more subtle beauty. It's not the, just like the mountains and deserts and the ocean, like they're just so huge and so powerful that you can't miss them. Like they force you to sit and look. Whereas here it's, it's kind of within our daily life, but it's much more subtle. So we have to be conscious and mindful, maybe look forward a little bit more to see the flowers that are growing and the pollinators that are buzzing around, or to see the migration of birds come through, or the seasons. But we have so much.
Someone once said to me, Cleveland, so many shades of gray. And this was so many years ago. This was probably in the 90s that they said this to me. And I've made a study of it since then, because I never another cloudy day in Cleveland kind of thing. And then now it's like, look for the shades of gray. Look for how beautiful the clouds are when they're like kind of looming and hanging and lingering, lingering over the city. But it is, we have like beauty that we don't appreciate all around us.
Yeah,
Take a picture of the clouds when we're back.
We'll see what I can do.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, I always encourage folks to wander around your neighborhood, your closest park, and just, or explore parks you've not been. I definitely have enjoyed during the pandemic time to go out and explore parks that I've never been to, or have wanted to go for a while, just for whatever reason hadn't gone. And there's just so much interesting things to see and to explore. And geologically, this area is really interesting and special, and it's the coming together of glacial areas, as well as Appalachian areas, as well as prairie areas, as well as both the pine and the deciduous forest. Like all of that kind of converges here, and it doesn't really happen in that many other places. So it's very unique, and there's a lot of interesting places and opportunities if you just want to kind of look for them. And I honestly, the moody days are some of the best days. These cloudy, strange,
it is strange out today.
Gray days are some of the more special times to witness the beauty that's around us.
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking of, there's a place along, the bike and hike that's up higher in elevation. There's a place in between, say, Route 303 and whatever's north of that, like, I don't know, it's Boston Mills Road or something. And there's a place where the stones come up on either side, and it's always like super chill there. Mm-hmm. Do you know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? And mossy and moist, but like literally not just cooler, not cooler like you just walked into the shade, cold, like you walked into an icebox. And so I would take the kids there when they were little. They had just paved that, and we would rollerblade there because it was God's air conditioning. We're going to go to God's air conditioning. And they're like, we want to go to God's air conditioning. It's so hot, We take the rollerblades and we sweat. Don't worry, it's going to be air conditioning. And yeah, like those just little places that are tucked away. There's not a sign. There's not an admission charge. They're not open. They're not closed. They're just there for anyone to really appreciate. So yeah, so maybe in the comments put your favorite local area to enjoy nature. What other kind of like air conditioning or heat wave does God have tucked away for us? I love that. And then Zach is going to photograph it for us. We'll see it on Society 6, and we'll support him in all the work he does. Let's see, I want to also thank you, because I know you, since I've left the leadership of Elevate Akron, you're one of the people that kind of stepped in and has offered support and kind of prana, life energy to the whole project. And so many good things have come from Elevate since I passed the baton to Kevin in September of 19. So thanks for that. Is there anything going on with Elevate that you want to just point to in this moment? Like anything that you think of that, I don't know, since the festival was over, sometimes there's a little off season until more of the goodness starts to flow. But I know that you were a part of that, and I appreciate it.
I'm grateful to be a part of it. I'm grateful for all that Elevate is and
Yeah.
all that you brought to our area through
Yeah, but
creating
the
that.
fact that it's like growing on, I mean, like one of the things that I brought me so much joy about it is that it felt like it didn't belong to me, but to the community. So it was just fun to watch back, sit back and watch everybody play, and you know, and then Kevin's just done a nice job of bringing it out into the community, and I know you're an important part of that because, you know, troubadour piece, and like if you want to know what you can do to help around the city of Akron, this is your contact right here. So make sure people can get in touch with you.
Great.
Awesome. All right, Zach, what message do you have to humanity?
It's a big question. I think the thing that keeps coming to me, and it came to me earlier when we were talking a little bit about this, and just through the course of all of this, is love anyway. It's no matter what is going on, no matter how crazy things are, no matter how unchangeable it feels, or you know, fatalistic or
wrong
or predestined or whatever things might be, the answer is to love anyway. You know, if we can't do anything about it, we can love anyway, and maybe reduce some suffering for ourselves and someone else around us in the meantime. And if we can change things, we love anyway, and we can watch things change. So it seems like it's a time to remember that everyone, all of us, are going through things right now, hard and challenging things. Some incredibly hard and challenging, some less so, but all of us are experiencing some form of challenge, of grief, of pain, of suffering, of change, pressure,
yeah.
just you know, unease, just
I feel
some
like
chaotic moment. All of us are going through some form of that, and it's all very valid. And so we need to be mindful of that, and as gentle as we can be. I mean, these are fiery times, and sometimes it calls for fire, but we need to be as gentle as we can with each other, knowing that we're all going through things that we don't know about or we don't understand fully.
And it's very polarized right now, very polarized, right, wrong, good, bad, yes, no.
Yeah.
And that's not where the solution is.
No.
The solution isn't there at all. There isn't, love isn't yes, love isn't no, yeah, love isn't right, love isn't left, love isn't red, love isn't blue, love isn't this solution or that solution to a particular problem. It's like the middle path that embraces and integrates all of it.
Yeah, it's
so
nature works in systems. Nature is an ecosystem, and then just like there's many ecosystems within the big ecosystem, and nature has no concept of right or wrong or any of those sorts of things. Those are our thoughts and ideas that we kind of mash upon everything else. You know, and so it's just figuring out how we fit into ecosystems, how we all fit in together, and how we all integrate with each other and connect. You know, is really kind of our work, and figuring out what that looks like and how that feels. And it's going to be uncomfortable often, and there's, you know, it's messy. If you go into a forest, it's messy. There's all sorts of levels and layers. There's all sorts of plants that are, you know, represented and working on it, and some
living and dying and all
living
of it.
and dying, and they all help each other in some ways, and they all kind of, I don't want to say compete isn't quite the right word, but there's all sorts of challenges that they go through, and you know, it's helpful to remember that that is also our system. That is also how we exist here, and you know, there's always a bit more than meets the eye. There's always something that we don't know. There's always more to learn, and so since none of us know everything, you know, people have devoted generations to learning about blades of grass, and they still can't tell you everything about that blade of grass.
Right.
So what we know is so tiny compared to reality that it's helpful to remind ourselves that we need to be more humble,
Mhm.
and we need to do what we can to be compassionate and caring, and offer people a little bit of space, offer people a little bit of compassion, and to remember that people are far more than one decision or far more than one stance or ideology. It's easy because we buy into those ourselves, and so then we become that ideology as well. We have to give ourselves a little bit of that freedom to say we are more than those things. Like having a year where I'm not a musician has been a big opportunity for me to really look at that mask that I hold so dear. Like, musician just seems to be what I am, and to realize that it's part of what I am, but not all that I am. And, affording that to other folks, even if they haven't realized those things. And, it's really messy, it's really challenging. So just love anyway. Love anyway, no matter what. Again, if there's nothing we can do, if we can't change anything, we're headed towards doom and apocalypse and it's all over, there's no excuse to love anyway, because we have this moment. Why not make this moment as compassionate as we can? And if we can change things and make a difference, then love is how we're going to do it.
100%. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know. I know. So thank you for joining us. Namaste. Thank you for following. All of Zach's contact information will be listed below. And we hope to see you again soon. Namaste.